video is about how my agency hit $145,000 a month. I've been running ads to cold audiences for over 11 years, and in this video, I'm going to explain to you exactly how you can make paid ads work for you. This is an advanced guide. If you're spending about $200, $300 a day at least on your ads, I can show you exactly what I've been able to do for not just myself, but for dozens of agencies out there that are doing multi-seven figures, even 8 figures in revenue. And look, this is not your average video, because what I'm going to share with you over here is going to be so actionable using what I call the infinite ad loop system. Okay, the infinite ad loop system is exactly what I developed for a decade, running ads not just for myself, for these other agencies, but for actual 9 and 10 figure brands over here, being in the ad account, being in the trenches, not just some ethereal guru dishing out advice that doesn't actually work with some copy paste ad tactics. I'll show you something actionable, so stick it over here so you can see how the infinite ad loop works. Now, the reason I call it an infinite ad loop is because it's really a flywheel system. Okay, if you've seen anything about flywheels, what you'll understand is that it's really a self-serving process, meaning that as you run it longer, it just gets better and better. Okay, now the reason I call it a flywheel is because it very much is one of those things that if you do correctly, it becomes a virtuous cycle that keeps feeding itself. And this really comes down to a few components that I'm going to break down. There's really 3 components to this over here, which will allow you to then run ads for, weeks, if not months, without having to change them. And that's the dream of every agency owner, right? We want to be able to run ads without them fatiguing, without them going out of KPIs. So how does the infinite ad loop system work? The first thing we want to understand is, well, why is this even necessary in the world of ads today? Okay, if we look at a platform like Meta, it's growing. And there's more and more advertisers coming through every day. And not just advertisers in your niche, there are advertisers in other product spaces vying for the same attention, they're vying for the same prospect that you are targeting. So let's say, for example, you're in the dental niche. Well, guess what? Dentists aren't just being sold marketing agency services. They're being sold software, right? They're being sold coaching programs. They're being sold a lot of things. And so you're competing with all these people and the ones that are in your direct space for their attention. So what we see with ads is that if we go into something, for example, the ads library, and we may look at some of our competitors and we may say, okay, well, this ad is doing really, really well. So I'm just going to go ahead and put this at like $100 a day. What ends up happening is that maybe it gets results for a few days, but then it's really short-lived. It goes up and then boom, it tanks. Why is that? Because what we got to understand is that Facebook is in many ways looking at our ads, comparing it to other ads, and it's looking for something very, very important. It's looking for novelty. In other words, how new is it? And it's also looking for ultimately how good is it at converting. You have 2 metrics over here that are important in the world of ads. You have your click-through rate all, and then you have your unique outbound click-through rate. And so this ultimately speaks to stopping the scroll. This ultimately speaks to getting the click. If these metrics are high, then what you get to do is you get to exploit Facebook's reward system. Facebook's reward system is basically it giving you lower cost per 1,000 views and a lower cost per click, and ultimately favoring you in the bidding process. Why? Because you have good content. And that makes sense, right? Because Facebook is ultimately a social media platform. So with the infinite ad loop, we want to ultimately exploit Facebook's reward system so that we can do this. But how do we get there? How do we start putting all this together? Well, we've got to understand that the most important thing in the world of advertising is actually understanding the psychology. The psychology of who? The psychology of our prospects. I want to take a pause over here and take you to this ad over here. do you make these mistakes in English? Check this ad out if you've never done this. It is one of the greatest ads of all time. Okay, this ad ran for 40 years unchanged. Okay, and the reason is because the guy who wrote the ad, he understood the psychology of the actual prospect. What is it that they actually want? What is it that they don't want? What is it that they care about? And this is the one thing that the best copywriters did before they ever wrote a single line of copy. They understood the psychology of their prospect. And it's not good enough to just know, oh, they want more leads and they want less headaches. That's too basic. Okay, when I say understand the psychology of your prospect, well, what are the exact brands, solutions they've tried? What exactly do they have a headache with? So you have their primary headaches, which relate to the actual marketing as a whole, but that leads to secondary headaches like having an empty calendar, having to fire people, having their workers call them asking for more work, having their workers go to other companies because they're not being kept busy enough. Like, how well do we really understand our demographic? Because you see, once we understand our demographic really well, we can really encapsulate their desires into connecting it with what our product offers. So what do they desire? And then how do we bridge the gap between what we offer? That's going to be through our promise. Okay? We essentially, this over here is like, it's sort of the intersection of the desire and the offer. Okay, this area over here, if you can learn to articulate a promise that really matters, like for example, in the dating space, I know it's a different niche, but just bear with me for a second over here. If you look at the dating niche, for example, will it ever get old to say, find your dream man or woman? It won't. It'll never get old. So that's why when we make promises, we want to understand the psychology, because ultimately what people really care about is finding their dream man or woman. You may be able to articulate this promise in different ways too, like get married to the woman of your dreams, in X period of time. Right, or get engaged, right? Whatever it is, because you're tapping into that desire of companionship, which isn't going to go away. And as marketers, we can only channel desire. We can't create it where it didn't already exist. So what we want to do is we want to channel that desire into a promise that we can back up with our own product. So when we have a promise, then what we can start doing is we can just start going through now the 3-step process. We create our offer, which is really just our promise, plus a unique mechanism, which is our unique delivery vehicle, our unique vehicle that gets this result, right? So I'm going to find you your dream woman with my, swipe no more protocol that makes sure that you're not actually swiping. Instead, what you're doing is you're approaching women in real life, right? Like that could be a answer. You see how it's like it's the vehicle. So, okay, I've been trying Tinder, but what I actually need is this other thing that this guy has to teach. Or I've been trying, running dynamic ads with my Facebook ads, and they're not really working, or I can't really track them very well. Okay, maybe I need to try, the infinite ad loop instead. Okay, I've been trying to get results with SEO. Well, maybe I need to try, the Facebook flywheel, right? It's really the vehicle that's going to create the outcome that you're promising. And then step 2 is what you want to do is you want to take that outcome and you want to put it into the body of your ad. Okay, the body of your ad is really just going to be the promise. It's going to be your unique mechanism. How does it work? And then you're going to have a call to action. Okay, this is the body of your ad. And then what you can do is you can tag this onto literally an infinite number of hooks, which they're not just one-liners or two-liners. These are actual sentences and paragraphs that feed into some sort of a pain point that your prospect's going through, and then followed by the actual body. So I'll give you an example right now, right? The body might be, all right, I'm going to help you find your dream man or woman in the next 60 days using my Swipe No More protocol, where I will practically step-by-step handhold you through the exact system that I use to help, 23 married men get their dream woman in record-breaking times. And it didn't involve going on Tinder. It didn't involve this, didn't involve that, didn't involve that, right? So that is the body of the ad. Now remember that body that I just mentioned right now. A hook for that ad would be something along the lines of, are you tired of, not even are you tired? I feel like tired is so freaking drawn out, but, it'd be something along the lines of, it's another Friday night, you're scrolling through social media, thinking that you're going to make some plans. 10 minutes turns into 1 hour, turns into 3 hours, and it's now midnight. You haven't gone out anywhere. Another Friday night, all by yourself, scrolling through your phone. That has to end. And you can tag that onto the body, right? Another headline could be something along the lines of how you go to the wedding, all the invitees to the wedding, they have a +1. You're the one that doesn't have a +1. Come to think about it, you haven't had a +1 for X period of time. And then you can get into the body, right? It's really about, oftentimes the way I like thinking about hooks is, well, what problem can you lead with? What problem can you start extrapolating and digging up that's going to make them think about that and say, yeah, that's me, that's my problem right now. I want to listen to what this guy has to say. So that's how I think about hooks. And then all you do is you run a simple testing strategy, which I have more of. I have a free course in my actual school community that goes through the testing structure. But basically, this just comes down to media buying, okay? You want to find an audience that works really well. And the way that I think about audiences is as follows. With audiences, what we want to do is we want to go after an interest audience. Okay, we want to go for a broad audience. And we also want to test the lookalike audience. And we want to do lookalikes of as many things as we can, like leads. We want to do a lookalike of calls, lookalike of page engagers. We want to do a lookalike of really anyone that watched the video. So video views. These are all great audiences, right? Interest, you can stack these with however many you want. Generally, you want to go for an audience size of 10 million plus. I'd say no more than maybe 15 million is probably the best. And thereafter, what we're doing is we're taking a proven promise, we're putting it into a body, we're testing out which hooks work. In the process, we will eventually find 1 to 3 audiences that work. We'll find 3 to 5 creatives that work. And then once you have these 2 things, what you can do is you can then start scaling. Because think about it. If you run these 3 to 5 creatives that work to these 1 to 3 ad sets that also are proven, because you tested them out with your creative, then you can scale without things breaking, without having ad fatigue. And then you can rely on the Facebook algorithm to put you in front of more people for more conversions and more sales. For more conversions and for more booked calls. And so when we look at what we've done over here and how this allows us to go after, and how this has allowed me to go after cold audiences, well, it's because I don't need them to know who I am. I don't need a brand. I don't need a freaking bunch of followers. All I need is to articulate to them what they are feeling by having a scroll-stopping creative, right? Having a creative that is new, it's novel, and ultimately gets them to want to click through. And what if they see on the other side speaks to that same desire that I'm continuously hitting in my ad creative, in my copy, in my headline, on my landing page, then what's going to happen is they're going to see this congruency and they're going to realize, okay, this guy really knows what he's talking about. He can help me get that promise finally with his new and novel approach. I want to click through. I want to book a call. And heck, if you want some more support with this, if you really want some one-on-one help, that's something that I can do. What you could do is you could tap the link in the description, go check out my landing page, watch the video on there that explains in a bit more depth how the infinite ad loop works, and then you could book a call with me. I'll be more than happy to take a look into your ad account, break down the stats, look at your ad library, give you creative suggestions, and only if it makes sense, we could work together one-on-one. And if not, you can always watch these videos for free and join my free school community and keep getting value that way. I hope this was beneficial. See you on the next one. Peace.